As I continue on this journey of figuring it out, I'll be talking about my losses and my wins. 2023 was the year I felt like I lost money, my time, due to unplanned events, and I met people that I wished I did not meet. But also the year I made some personal wins. I went to places that I had dreamt about, and I met people that I did not plan to meet. It was a year that I felt mentally stalled and stuck. It was also the year I had a lot of bursts of creativity and was able to capture a lot of memorable events. I don't think I'm getting it.
So as much as it's easy to talk about losses, it's also important to talk about wins. And year 2023 has been a year that has made me realize that gratitude is actually is not conditioned to the amount of wins you have had. It's an attitude. It's an attitude that you have regardless of whether you won or not. And 2023 has been a year I've made comments that I've made, like the amount of losses I believe that I've made. In 2023, I've not made such kind of losses in previous years, and it's because I felt like I kept on having like back-to-back losses, and it felt overwhelming to experience such a thing, having losses like happening in that way. However, I came to learn that um, as much as I had losses, I also had wins. It was not all just filled with not winning. It was not just filled with, oh, I was losing something. So there were also significant wins that I had. And if I had to be sincere with myself, as much as I was acknowledging the losses, I also had to acknowledge that I won some things. But then the most significant thing that I've had to go through is that, or I had to go through in 23, was seeing my losses as lessons. For some of the losses I had were my first time experiences, and some of them were born out of my naivety about the word. Some of them were born out of my inability to make the right decisions, and you know it's it's made me realize that there were things that I didn't know. And the truth is that everybody has something that they would have to go through. Would have their moments of something that they have to figure out with themselves. And if this was my own experience, I had to go through it. Because no story is sweet without experiences. Like, it's experience that makes sense sweet. You get, like, the more interesting the experience, the more interesting the story. But I'm not saying that it's a pleasant thing to go through some things, but the truth is that in order for us to actually have some strong impact, some stories may inspire it. And so for me, I began to start seeing the lessons that my losses were giving me. But most importantly, it was identifying the fact that the peace of God was with me, and embracing that peace that God was giving me regardless of my challenges. And even though, yeah, some of them were born out of my own flaws, my own poor decisions, my own inability to understand what was going on, I could still see God's peace as a solace, as a consolation. And with that, I could, face the challenges as they were coming and look ahead with hope. And we say that a person will live will have hope. And as the Bible says, a living dog is better than a dead lion. So as long as there is hope, you have the encouragement to go on, to keep moving on. And in this passage, Romans 8 verse 28, it says, all things work together for good for them that love God and are called according to his purpose. For me, over the years, I've continued to make emphasis. God kept on making emphasis on it. And 2023 was a year also that I had to have emphasis on that, and realizing that as a person who has been alive to Christ, God is so interested and invested in my story, and therefore whatever challenges I go through, he's going to use it to do a greater work in me. So if it physically looks like a loss, I may have learned something spiritually, mentally. And see, sometimes for you, before you are wise, you show foolishness. What's important is that when you are shown the way of wisdom, is that you take in that wisdom and not sticking to what you know, and taking the wisdom that has been shown to you. And for me, that's what I had to see. And instead of focusing so much on what I lost, I had to be intentional, looking at what have I learned. and also still being grateful for the great wins I have had. So as many of us that are like, God, I beg, don't put me in the strong people's list of 2024. May God answer our prayers, so I pray you will put it chilling list. But I know I've talked to people and I've had people comment about it. 23 has been hard for them, but you see, and the thing is that most of us are not kind of put on our face. So one thing I had to learn is that regardless of what you are going, I'm not saying every problems are the same, but sometimes you don't just let it overwhelm you in a way that is all that people see in you. Everybody really has what they are going through, and I pray that God will help us. 2024 may reach chill. Well, like I just hope that God helps us and helps myself as well. That I realize that He's ever present and willing to be part of my life. And I hope you also feel the same way too, or you are encouraged to feel that same way. Yeah, I hope so.
So until next part, stay safe and God bless.